Hello, my friends. It's Nick. It's the ASMR nerd. And today I've got a tingly treat for you. We're going to be unboxing the Deluxe Edition of Tainted Grail, the Fall of Avalon. Maybe you've heard of this game. It was in early access for quite some time before launching its 1.0 version this past May. And it's gained a bit of a reputation for being almost more of a Bethesda game than Bethesda games these days. It is a first-person fantasy RPG, and it's been called the Polish Skyrim by many. And of course, that immediately caught my attention as a massive fan of Skyrim, to say the least. And when the publisher Awaken Realms reached out earlier this year and asked if I would like to check out the game, maybe unbox this year Deluxe Edition, of course I had to say yes. And like I said, it did come out back in May, but I was away out of the country at the time, and it's just been a busy few months, so I'm only finally just getting to recording this unboxing. But I have been playing Tainted Grail, and so I'll share a little bit about my experiences with the game as we unbox it. But we should probably just dive in and check out what's in the box. I believe there is maybe some kind of art book in here. The art is one of the standout aspects of this game, in my opinion. It has some truly breathtaking areas and vistas. It has a very dark fantasy aesthetic. And, well, you'll see. I bet you we'll see some pretty cool art in this package. So, the game is developed by Questline, a Polish developer. And this is apparently actually part of a series, the Tainted Grail series, which started as a board game, I believe. And it is a dark fantasy take on Arthurian legends, the legend of King Arthur. And it's a pretty cool setting. Awaken Realms is the company that I believe designs and publishes the board game. And Questline is a video game developer subsidiary. So let's open this up and see what we've got. So what we've got is a box inside a box. It says Tainted Grail, Fall of Avalon. here we've got a very dark and brooding image of King Arthur. And I won't go into any real spoilers about the game's story because it actually seems like the story is another standout aspect. So far it's been very interesting. But yeah, being centered around Arthurian legend, you spend a lot of time exploring King Arthur's legacy, let's say. The Deluxe Edition. So let's... how can I get this out of here? I'm just going to dump it out. Over there. Okay. So this box is shrink wrapped. On the back, we have an Artbook and a SteelBook in here. Not too much else to see. So this is, of course, a physical edition, but the game is obviously available on Steam. And it's nice because it's kind of pitched as like a double A kind of tier game, which is to say it's not full priced. I think it's 45 USD. So, and given the amount of content that appears to be in this game and the quality of it, I think that's a fantastic price. I have been playing, as I said, and maybe a dozen hours or something so far. So, not a ton. I'm led to believe it's sort of a 50 hours plus main story, and then many, many more hours if you want to do all the side quests. Hundreds of side quests, evidently. But I'm still in the first area of sort of 3 major areas in the game. The Horns of the South, that area is called. And I mean, I'll just cut right to the chase and tell you I'm enjoying it a lot so far. As I said, it is a first-person RPG that will feel very familiar to fans of the Elder Scrolls games, Skyrim in particular. You spend a lot of time out exploring the vast open world, questing. Let's see if I can do this without being too loud. That was kind of loud. Right now in the game I am playing a kind of spell sword type with a sword in one hand and magic in the other. And let's see. So yes, we do have an art book here. And the SteelBook here. So you get a taste of the art from the image on this SteelBook. It's very dark. Some of it even reminds me a little bit of Geiger, I think is the name of the artist, H.E. Geiger. A lot of kind of grotesque and sort of body horror elements, but not in a way that's like super disgusting. Well, the opening section, I will say, if you're squeamish, the opening part of the game is a little bit gooey. There's a lot of body parts around and whatnot in a dungeon, but after that, it lays off that a little bit, and once the game opens up, there's much more varied art and environments. And I will say, I found the prologue, sort of a tutorial dungeon, to be a little bit long. But if you do pick up the game, stick with it, play through that dungeon. Once you get out into the open world, things get, in my opinion, a lot more interesting and a lot more free, of course. So don't judge it by those first couple of hours, I would say. So we've got this ram's head. Look, it says here, Tainted Grail, the fall of Avalon. Once again, looks like this ram's-headed demon creature has some kind of a censer with vapors emanating from it. Some might call the aesthetic kind of a dark gothic aesthetic. I don't know if that's fully doing it justice. It's not like Victorian Gothic. It's more kind of low fantasy than that. It's medieval Gothic, if anything. And here is the empty SteelBook. This is kind of a trend these days, isn't it? Where the Deluxe Edition doesn't actually come with a physical copy of the game. But I guess, I don't know what you put in here, truth be told. I don't know if you can get a physical disc for this game. Perhaps you can. I'm not sure. Now, for that matter, I'm not even positive if it's available on anything other than PC. I should probably know that. But at the very least, I know it's available on Steam. But if you wanted to put this SteelBook on your shelf with your game collection to represent in a physical way your digital product, you could do that. It is a cool looking SteelBook, I will say. So we have that, and then I think the sort of featured item here, the main event, is this Artbook. And like I said, the art is very much one of the strengths of this game. You know, this game does have a lot of strengths. Like I said, I've been enjoying it quite a bit. It's there's a lot of very good games out right now that I could be playing. But when I sit down on my PC, Tainted Grail is often the game I choose to play these days with my limited gaming time these days. And it just, as a fan of Skyrim and the Elder Scrolls, it really resonates with me. I keep comparing it to Skyrim, but in some ways, it's a little bit Morrowindy. It feels a little bit weird the way Morrowind does. The setting is also very foggy. It's always foggy. So that is quite reminiscent of Morrowind. And I would not be surprised if the developers were inspired in some part by Morrowind. There's some strange NPCs you encounter, and the world just feels odd, but in a good way. It feels interesting. So the book is hardcover. On the back here we have the art team. It's not a big art team, is it? It goes to show it is, a bit smaller in scope in terms of the studio, but they have crafted what seems to be a pretty immense game with some pretty stunning visuals. And I will say, sometimes up close, not all the assets hold up as you might expect from a AAA game in 2025, let's say. Some low-res textures here, some low-poly models there. But where this game really excels visually is the art direction at scale. The landscapes, the sight lines, some of the monumental architecture and statuary is truly breathtaking. And I think it does that extremely well. Let's see what we've got here. So here we have King Arthur at his round table, all by himself. This is King Arthur's tomb, his resting place. And again, I don't want to spoil anything, but this game does take place some 500 or 600 years after King Arthur's lifetime. And a lot of the story seems to revolve around his legacy, the legacy of his conquests, and the actions he undertook in life. And you can see already this very dark art style. Physically dark, it's very brooding. Like I said, lots of fog and mist. This is, I believe, a statue that looks over King Arthur in his resting place. I think that's what this is. And over here, King Arthur in his burial regalia. Like I said, the monumental architecture is one of the most visually impressive parts of the game. I don't want to draw too many parallels because it is overall a fairly different kind of game, but visually the game does have some commonalities with Elden Ring and FromSoft games, the Souls series, that medieval Gothic kind of aesthetic. I would say, now granted I've barely played the Souls games, I have played a fair bit of Elden Ring though, and I would say even the world of Elden Ring has some more kind of elegant high fantasy aesthetic in parts, whereas things in Tainted Grail, I don't know, they just feel a bit more grounded's not the right word either, because there's a lot of giant statues and floating stuff, and I don't know. But somehow maybe a little more desperate. I don't know. There's certainly more people around, but I know I don't even know what these scenes are, I have to admit. And I suppose there could be minor visual spoilers here. There probably are. We might see scenes from late game areas. I probably won't know what they are or how to interpret them, but I'm sure some of the art in here does depict later game stuff. This is the grimdark aesthetic. We've got these corpses, skeletons chained to these giant ribs of some creature, long deceased. I believe this is Excalibur over on the left here, and King Arthur's bladed crown. And I guess this must be the Tainted Grail itself. It's rather foreboding looking statue of all these hands grasping for Excalibur. I guess this is the concept art of that. This is a scene from the first hub settlement in the game, the Horns of the South. And the Horns of the South refers to the twin lighthouses in that area, one of them being right here. You can see, though, that very dark, misty, foggy aesthetic. There are day-night cycles in the game, but even during the day, it never really gets all that bright and sunny. It always feels moody and misty. Maybe that changes in later areas of the game, I can't say, but at least in the Horns of the South, it's always foggy. And then at night, beware the weirdness. Weird, W-Y-R-D. The weirdness is a type of encroaching magic that mutates and corrupts. And during King Arthur's heyday, they drove back the weirdness with the power of the menhirs, the massive statues that dot the landscape. But now, 600 years on, the power of the menhirs has failed or is failing, and the weirdness is creeping back. And at night time, the world is suffused with this chaotic, warping energy, magic, and it's not very safe to travel at night. I just run back into the settlement and sleep usually, but so far I have found that there's scary things out in the weirdness. I get a sense of some of the size and scale of things, some of that monumental architecture. You can kind of get a sense of what I mean about that Geiger-esque sort of aesthetic here. Or, who's that other artist? I believe he was Polish. The name is escaping me, but he's known for his very dark art, a lot of twisted kind of ghouls and corpses and bone things. I think his name starts with a Z. But the name's escaping me right now, but I think there's some inspiration there too. Okay, this thing is super cool. I don't actually know what it is yet. I've only seen it once. But it's this massive, spectacular looking winged beast. Giant raven of ill omen, perhaps. The scale, again, is striking. variety of different swords. This is, of course, a, true blue action RPG. There's tons of equipment to collect. It's very much like the Elder Scrolls games or the Fallout games where you can pick up everything that isn't nailed down. And the character building system is quite impressive. You have attributes that you put points into as you level up, as well as skill trees, and there's a lot of skills. Like, I think there's maybe 6 or 7 different areas, kind of major areas like magic, combat, stealth, crafting, survival, that you can put points into, and each of those areas has, I want to say, like 5 to 7 skill trees, like sub-trees within it, and each of those sub-trees has like upwards of 10 skills in it. And each of those skills has multiple levels that you can unlock, so it's like, if like character building and theory crafting is something you enjoy, this game absolutely has that in spades. And it seems quite flexible. You can play out a lot of different class fantasies and interesting hybrid classes as well. Because you don't really lock yourself into a single class. It's just however you want to invest in those skill trees that dictates what you can do. Some very cool weapon designs here. Some spooky looking daggers. Spellcasting is interesting. The spells are found within the world, like loot. Then you can slot them like equipment. There's a robust alchemy system, crafting, smithing, lots of side activities. There's fishing, there's cooking, like I said, smithing and alchemy. I think there's player housing eventually, although I've not unlocked it yet. Love the color on these banners. Don't know who these characters are, but lots of undead in this game. You like zombies, you like skeletons, you like ghouls and liches and imps and demons and all that good stuff. This has got Plague Doctor vibes. Very thorny looking shield. Here's some character outfits. Looks like armor sets. 3 different classes of armor. Well, not really. There's no armor classes, but it uses an encumbrance system like a Souls game or Elden Ring, where the more you equip, the heavier you are. That dictates the number of dodges you have before they need to recharge. Dictates how quickly you move overall. Things like that. I think it dictates maybe spellcasting success as well. Or spellcasting damage. I could be wrong about that, but lots of very cool looking equipment. I will say my dude looks pretty badass right now. Some very neat designs. Seems like you can use any weapon as long as you, well, actually, you can use any weapon, period, full stop, but it will be less effective if you don't have enough stats, like the right attributes. So like heavier weapons require more investment in strength. Sort of finesse weapons require dexterity, anyone can wield them, but you're just not going to do as much damage if you don't have the requisite stats. These look like druids. The druids are a faction that plays into the story. These are some spooky looking outfits. Wow, this is some pretty intense looking stuff, eh? Oh, very dark. They're dark and desaturated. There's not a whole lot of color in this world, but it fits the very moody, ambient nature of the setting and the story. Now that is a cool hat. I need to find me that wizard hat. That's pretty cool too. Okay, now we're getting into some weird creatures, and there are definitely some weird creatures. I don't know what this thing is. It's kind of wild though. This thing I have run into, I forget what they're called, but they're basically mole creatures that were, I think, bred or created by the druids. And then, well, something happens to the druids by and large. And now these mole creatures are running amok. You find them in caverns and the deep places. They'll burrow underground and then pop out and try and eviscerate you. I wish I could remember what they were called, but there's a whole bestiary where you can read up on all the creatures you encounter. Very crazy looking things. I'm sure I've only scratched the surface. I'm sure there's truly messed up creature designs in this game. I have no doubt. Another point of comparison that's tempting to make is, of course, the Witcher games. And I think that is an apt comparison in kind of the hopelessness of the setting, if that makes sense, and the creativity of a lot of the monsters in the setting. The gameplay itself is quite different. It's not a third-person action thing. It's very much Elder Scrollsian first-person experience, although there is a third-person mode if you prefer, but it's considered to be just kind of experimental and mostly for accessibility setting or for accessibility purposes. It's not recommended that you play the whole game that way. I'm sure you could though if you wanted. It's also an apt comparison because, of course, both Questline and CD Projekt are Polish studios. There's a certain grimness, a certain darkness that I find suffuses a lot of Polish games, at least these sort of Polish fantasy games. Maybe that's a little bit unfair to say, but there's also a sense of humor. I should say it's not exclusively all dreary and depressing. Like there is a through line of dark humor that runs through it as well. Or maybe not through it, but it's around the edges. It's in the side quests. There's some moments that have got a chuckle out of me. That's super cool. Look at the light shining through those wings. Oh, this guy has a beehive for a head. Creepy. looking things. Look at these guys, lanky, bony dudes. All covered in straw and such. This guy looks big. Makes me think of those bell tower beasts in Elden Ring. I'm sure they have a name, I forget though. Lots of this medieval Gothic architecture in the game. Standing stones. This all looks pretty druidic to me. I would say, oh, these are the druidic shrines that are scattered throughout the world. You can make sacrifices at them and gain buffs. That's cool. But you get a very good feel for the overall aesthetic and darkness of the game. And so if that's your kind of thing, I think you will really enjoy this setting. The characters have been fun so far. The writing seems pretty good. I will say there's a few awkward kind of things here and there that I think might just be from the fact that I don't think English is the first language of the developers necessarily, but it's mostly localized quite well into English at least. I will also say the voice acting ranges from very good, like the voice for King Arthur is, I could just listen to him forever, pretty much, to pretty rough around the edges in some cases. There's some voiceovers that are just a little rough, but again, for the sort of tier of game that it is, I think that's totally acceptable, and it almost adds to the charm in a way, you know. This game is not afraid to be weird, and it's not afraid to be a little rough around the edges. Though I will say I've not had any major bugs, not run into any showstoppers yet, anyway. That's a beautiful scene. Massive statue, lots of big statuary around the world. In the outdoors and underground as well, for that matter. And lots of very good dungeons and crypts and layers to delve into. Mines, you know. Some of those landscapes. It's neat, some interesting symbols. I don't know what these relate to exactly, but very stylistically interesting. It's a cat. Maybe that's King Arthur on his horse. I don't know. You can ride horses in this game. Perhaps there are other mounts as well. I don't know. That's cool. Not sure what character this is. If it's the player character or just... It almost looks like the player character with different play styles, maybe, you know. You can summon spirits and creatures to aid you, of course. There's There's necromancy, there's elemental magic, there's, of course, stealth. Many ways to play the game. That's such a cool statue. I've seen this one in the game. It's like the Reaper almost. These look like some 3D renders. Artifacts in that interesting style again. It's like I don't know. These are super cool though. I'm not sure where those come into play, but those look fascinating. Some more renders of objects. Apparently journaling or sketchbooking or something. Sketchbooking is something you can do in the game. I have not figured out how to do that. I'm not sure how it works. Oh yeah. Here's some fleshy looking dudes. Flayed looking guys. Lots of that. Lots of, sinew stretched over bone kind of aesthetics. Lots of muscles under the skin as the skin has been ripped or burned away kind of aesthetics. I wish I could remember the name of that Polish artist. I'm sure somebody will leave a comment and let me know. If you know who I'm talking about, please do let me know. I'm going to go look it up after this, though. Wow, that's cool. That's like a Davy Jones looking kind of guy. Look at that, though. This is like a tombstone golem. Is that what I'm seeing here? That appears to be that. Two concept artists, 4 character artists, 5 3D art specialists, and a single 2D and texture artist. That doesn't seem like much for a game of this scale. That's a pretty small art team. That's amazing, though. That is the art of Tainted Grail, the Fall of Avalon. And that is the contents of the Deluxe Edition of the game. As I said, have been really enjoying this game. If you are a fan of the Elder Scrolls, if you're a fan of the setting of, say, Elden Ring or The Witcher, and you want a more sort of Bethesda-like take on that, first-person, open-world, dark fantasy RPG, this is the game you want to play. It's a little quirky, it's a little weird, it's very dark, it seems expansive, it seems heartfelt. Like, I can tell that the developers really care about the setting, the story, and making a cool game. That definitely shines through, even if it's a little rough around the edges here and there. But again, not in a way that has been problematic for me. So definitely encourage you to check it out. I know it's available on Steam. Not sure about other platforms or if they have any plans to bring it to other platforms, but I'm sure you can look that up as well. Now, I've talked a lot about this game. I've not shown you the game in this video, but if you would like to see the game in an ASMR-ish way, if you would like me to perhaps wander in Tainted Grail, the Fall of Avalon, please do let me know down in the comments. it's a beautiful setting, especially at the sort of landscape scale. And despite the darkness, there are some gorgeous, evocative, very atmospheric sights to see. So I would be happy to do a little bit of wandering in Tainted Grail, the Fall of Avalon. If you would like to see that, perhaps we could do a whispered wander. So do let me know down below if you would like to see that. And please do check out the game for yourself if you're intrigued by what you've seen here today. Big thanks to Awaken Realms for reaching out, for sending over this deluxe edition and a copy of the game. I've been enjoying it thoroughly, and I appreciate them reaching out so that we could do this unboxing. Thank you so much for joining me here, my friends. I do hope you found this interesting, but above all, I hope you found it relaxing. And I look very forward to having you back here next time. Farewell for now. And this is the part of the video where I like to give special thanks to this channel's amazing supporters. They support what I do here, the content that I create, through my Patreon and my YouTube memberships. And you can see their illustrious names right here. And as time goes on, the support becomes ever more meaningful. Some of these folks have been with our channel community for literally years and years and years. And I could not be more grateful. Whether a Patreon or YouTube is your platform of choice, there are 3 different tiers that you can find there. And at the Foos Row Da tier, the mightiest tier of support, well, those very special individuals get a spoken thank you, a big old shout out in every single video. And you are about to hear the names of those folks right now, starting with Ragnar Ragnarsson, Joe, Drummer Britt, and Jake Luffney. These fantastic folks and all those you see here very, very kindly support what I do, give me that confidence, that knowledge, that people value the content that I create. And I really, really appreciate that. So, as does everybody who supports this channel, whether it's on Patreon or YouTube, or by watching or listening, I appreciate it all. So, but here we're thanking specifically these supporters. So big, big thank you once again to this channel's amazing supporters.